There aren't many places you can see two Z16 Chevelles in one spot, one restored and one unrestored. And then as you keep walking down the aisle, see a 427 COPO Camaro that's been a drag car all of its life, and then a specially ordered 65 Chevelle two-door sedan with a special 396 425 horse big block. This is the Corvette Expo and Chevys in the Smokies, and in this video we're going to take a look at all of the cool survivors, old race cars, and extremely rare muscle cars from Chevrolet. I always check out the swap meet because you never know what you're going to run across. There's always a lot of Corvette specific stuff. You'll see a lot of body panels and a lot of project cars, and you never know though, you might see an old speed part somewhere, and in this case I see an old Edelbrock Smoky Unique intake manifold. This one is in the midst of a lot of cool Corvette stuff. You'll see cylinder heads here, tri-power setups, fuel injection systems, big block stuff left and right. And this same vendor had a really cool car for sale. It's a 1970 Chevy Nova SS 396 375 horse, and it's got all the documentation, all the numbers match, everything's there, build sheet, protector plate, the whole 9 yards. It's got 48,000 miles on it, and it says 50% original paint. So this thing has been touched up a little bit, but you can see that it's very much a survivor. There's not a lot that's been done to this thing to restore it, which means that it is pure and mostly original. You can open the door on this thing and see it's got a beautiful interior, it's got a bench seat, nothing crazy in here. It's got a couple of gauges down under the dash, but no real modifications here. And you can tell that this thing has not been restored. It's not been a nut and bolt rotisserie deal. This is a real survivor. And the guy was asking 100 grand for this car. That's probably good money on a true survivor like this. Here's another cool unrestored car. So this is a 1968 Chevelle, and under the hood it's got a big block Chevy, air conditioned. You will see bucket seats and a console and that cool horseshoe shifter, a couple of auxiliary gauges underneath the dash, and a tack. This thing has been stored for about 30 years in a block building and just came out of hiding. They put some fresh tires on it, got it running and driving, and brought it to the Corvette Expo and Chevys in the Smokies. C2 Corvette projects are in extremely high demand because you just don't run across an unrestored car very often. Obviously this one needs a lot of work. It's very rough. It's had the front end cut off of it. The back part of the car is rough. Every piece of it's rough, but this is a starting point for somebody. It's a 63 Corvette convertible. The pieces are there. Somebody that knew what they were doing could make a real car out of this thing. They were asking 20 grand for this project. Now here's a pretty rare combination because a lot of the restored muscle cars that you see are super sports or some sort of option package. Well, this one is actually a little more of a low-key option package. This is a 67 Chevelle Malibu. It's a convertible. You know, it's not your typical muscle car because it doesn't have a big block in it. But what it does have is Chevrolet's most potent small block at the time, the L79. So this thing still would probably run right with those big block cars. And this one looks really cool. It's restored beautifully. You can see those deluxe wheel covers, the red line tires. It's got all the right pieces for a great restoration, and the L79 looks good in there too. One of the coolest cars in the whole place was this 1965 Chevelle Malibu Super Sport Z16. This is one of 201 cars that Chevrolet built in 1965 with the 396 big block. So these cars are extremely rare, extremely valuable, and this is one of about 75 that are known to exist. And you'll see under the hood here, it's got aluminum heads. This thing is rowdy. It's not stock, it's not original by any means, but the body on this car is rough. It's rusty. There's not very much paint on this thing at all. And the closer you look at it, the more you see the extreme pitting on the sheet metal. They've put Penetrol or linseed oil or something on the rust to kind of give it a uniform finish. Even though the body on this thing is really rough, the interior is just about flawless. The black interior with bucket seats and a console, 4-speed, it's got auxiliary gauges hanging down under the dash, it's got a tack up on top of the dash. So this thing got a ton of attention all weekend long. It's a very rare and very valuable car, and it's all documented. It's legit. It is a real Z16 car, and it was parked across the aisle from another Z16 car. So two Z16s in the same building, that is extremely rare. So Jeff Helms brought his restored Z16. You can see bright red finish on the outside. It's got a black vinyl top, big block. Everything on this car is 100% accurate and correct. Jeff is a Chevelle guru. He is the authority when it comes to Chevelle restorations, and he's got a collection of amazing cars, and this Z16 is one of them. The star of the show, at least in my opinion, is this incredible 65 Chevelle 300 two-door sedan. Now, this is the most basic body you could get and the most basic interior, but this car was special ordered, a real COPO car from 1965, and it's one of one because it was ordered as a base model, but with Chevrolet's hottest big block. Now, the Z16 was also available in 1965, and that got you a 396 with 375 horsepower, but this one-of-one COPO has a 396 with 425 horsepower. So a 50 horsepower increase from the baddest thing that Chevrolet made in the Chevelle platform, and this car actually had an M22 four-speed, one of just a handful of cars built with the M22 that year, and then out back it had 488 gears with posi traction. This thing was an absolute animal. You'll see it was ordered with the mag wheel hubcaps, gold striped tires, just like what the Z16 would have had, and this car is restored to absolute perfection. Next up is a really special car. This is a 69 Camaro COPO 427, and it came from the factory with 456 gears and a 4-speed transmission. This is an extremely rare combination, even amongst the COPO cars. Not many came with 456 gears. You'll see it's in Dover white. The original paint's still hanging on. All the old decals are still there, including some great event decals from the Gator Nationals and other NHRA events. You'll see some sponsor decals here, and you'll see Mills Auto Repair on the quarter panels. All that stuff was there back in the 70s when this car was being raced. The only thing that's changed in recent years is that the Keystone wheels have been taken off, and the original style steel wheels and dog dish caps have been put back on this car. But you'll see that it does have M&H Superstock slicks on the back. This thing is just like it would have raced back in the day. Even under the hood is pretty much as it was left. Not restored, not dressed up in any way. This is just like it was left when this car was taken off the racetrack many years ago. This car was delivered to Brooks Chevrolet in Millen, Georgia, and Johnny Norrell is this car's proud owner, and he displays it at many different shows. It's not drag racing anymore, but it's on display, and it's got a great story to tell because all this stuff is original to the car. Inside, you'll see a blue interior with original bucket seats. The upholstery in this thing is immaculate. You'll see that it doesn't have a console. It just has a 4-speed shifter sticking up out of the floor. And then you'll also notice this car was ordered without a radio. Very cool that this survived all these years. Next up is an even more obscure COPO car. You can see that this was a Yenko Dana COPO Stinger, one of three. It's one of three cars that was built in this configuration. It had an extremely rare combination of engine, transmission, and suspension components, and it was all special ordered. So this thing belongs to Casey and Sandy Vandenberg from Maryville, Tennessee. It's got the M20 4-speed transmission. It's got the high-performance engine, one of 6 available in 1967. This thing has been restored beautifully. You can see it's got racing numbers on it. It's got torque thrust wheels on it, a really nice looking paint job, and it's just detailed to the max. If you watch my channel very often, you've probably heard me talk about Day 2 cars, and this is a great one. This is another 65 Chevelle Malibu Super Sport. This one's got some cool chrome reverse wheels on the back with recapped slicks, and it's in great condition. You can see it's very much a survivor. We look inside, we can see that original bucket seat interior, console, tack on the dash. It's got 5-spoke wheels and red lines on the front, and when we look under the hood, you won't find a big block because this is not a Z16 car, but it is a significant car because it has Chevrolet's L79 327 in it. So this is a pretty rowdy combination, and when you combine this with a 4-speed transmission and a nice low rear end ratio, these things were very potent on the street and at the track. I love old race cars, and this is a cool one here. This is a C3, and you can see it's got a full roll cage. It doesn't have the windshield frame anymore. It's got big fender flares, side pipes. This is a super cool road race car. You can see those headlights have been filled in. I love the numbers and the lettering on this thing. The stripes are cool. Everything about this car is cool and vintage, and it probably makes some really good noises through those side pipes. We can see under the hood, it's got a small block Chevy under there, but I'm betting by the rest of this configuration that it has got a radical camshaft, lots of compression. You can see inside of here, it's all business. It's got an aluminum Kirky racing seat and nothing else on the inside. Huge flares on the back for those big wheels and tires. This is a great combination. Here's another crazy one. Look at the test wheel on the back of this thing. This is a 68 Camaro, and notice that it's got dog dish caps, it's got body color wheels. There's nothing real crazy going on here. It does have bucket seats, but look in there, no console, and it has a floor shifted manual transmission, which is part of this car's story. This was actually a test car for the Saginaw 4-speed manual transmission. And this thing is fully documented. You can see the information here with all the different options, but there's a big backstory on this thing, and it is very well preserved. And under the hood, it doesn't have a big block. It doesn't have anything crazy. It's got a 327 with a 2-barrel carburetor. This car is all matching numbers, and it was actually supposed to be crushed after 3,000 miles of testing, but somehow it got stashed away, and it was stored in a barn since 1978. The current owner paid $2,000 and traded a set of Dart heads for it. Had no idea of the car's history, but as he was going through everything in the car, he found all of these factory papers in the glove box. This is an amazing find. It's one of very few test cars that survived. Again, most of these things were supposed to be crushed after their testing, but this one made it through and still has its story to tell. I love cars that get used, and I love cars that have survived, and this is the perfect example. This is a 67 Corvette Coupe, and it's not an elaborate option package. It's a small block. It's got air conditioning, and this thing has been driven over 250,000 miles, and it's completely unrestored. You can see the paint on this thing is not shiny. You can see the interior is very original, and under the hood is very original. This thing has just been driven and used and enjoyed for many, many years. I love it. When you want a fully loaded muscle car, this is the one right here. This is a 68 Chevelle Super Sport 396. It's got power brakes, power steering, air conditioning, big block. You can see green with a black vinyl top, bucket seats, console. This thing has everything you could have wanted in 1968, and it's an amazing survivor. The car that won it all, the best in show at Corvette Expo 2025, was Dale Flynn's 57 Corvette Airbox car. Now, this car has extensive racing history, and it's fully documented from day one. I've got a full video on this car's history if you want to check that out. Thank you for watching.